Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Slightly late start, so I do apologize for that. Having to jump around through a couple different things. This is VirtualPBX- and looks like I have good audio, so let's go ahead and get started. So here we are on our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can navigate here also from the virtualpbx.com website. If you look towards the top right, there's a little banner in blue, and it's got a support link there. There's also the dash login link right next to it. You can click on that. That will take you to this page. I do recommend bookmarking this page so that you can easily access your dashboard. And to log in, we first need your username, which is simply your email address, right? So if you just signed up, it would be that email address you used to sign up with us. Otherwise, it's the email address your admin used to create your user. And in case I didn't already say it, feel free to make use of the chat, and I should be able to see that when it comes through. And we can then look at the feature that we were talking about in greater detail for your question. So anyway, back to logging in. We'll need your password, which should have been created for you, again, by your admin or by the system if you had just signed up with us. And then lastly, we need your account name. This is typically your company name, right? It could be your own name if you set up a personal account. Now, if for some reason you don't have your password, like the email never got through, or you simply just forgot it, right here above the sign-in bar, there's a little forgot your info link. Just click on that. It's going to flip the box around. Okay, we still need your email address, right? That's the basis of your user. Then one of these two, right? We don't need both. We just need one of them. So either the account name, right, company name, or a company phone number. And then you click on Reset Password. This will send you an email. All right, there's going to be a link in that email address or in that email. You would double click on that. It's going to open up a new window or a new browser window. It will take you in and let you change your password. Once you change your password, you hit save. If you try to, the system will log you out shortly thereafter, either after you try to navigate away from that page, or I think it's after like a minute. And then it will take you back to the sign-in page. And so a couple of reasons for doing that. One, to help you remember the password you just created. But most importantly, it allows you to click on the Remember Me, right? So then hopefully you don't have to remember the password. But let's go ahead and get signed in. All right, and here, this is our dashboard, right? So general quick snapshot of your account. Now, if it's your first time ever logging into Dash, you're actually gonna have the Dash wizard pop up. And especially for an admin, you're gonna start off actually on your account page, right? So here's like where you could adjust your password to change it to something for yourself, this is for your own password. So if you wanted to change it here, you can change your time zone, the language, the date display. On the left here, you've got the account settings, right? So, because again, I'm an admin. The main thing that people change here is typically the time zone. As far as I've seen, it defaults to LA. You could also change the account name. If you do that though, please send an email over to our billing team to let them know. There will be other things they need to change on their side. Now, one thing that it doesn't show up on this account because it's a test account is over here on the left underneath where it says user, there'll be a section here for billing information. Things like where you can update your credit card information. You could update your billing contact, right? The person who gets the invoices and the technically owner of the account. You can also see your service plan and your invoices. When you're done here, you click on the close box over here to the top right, and then we'll be back on our dashboard. Now again, on that first login, right, the Dash Wizard is going to keep popping up, showing you different features. But we're going to go in depth, so we don't really need that here. So up here at the top, right, we have my name, which again, if I click on this, it gets me back to that account page. Now here, I have a Dnd Toggle, right, do not disturb. That's what Dnd stands for. If I click on that, it will flip it to be a little white dot. So that tells me it's active, right, which means calls to my user go into voicemail. Now, if you don't have this Dnd Toggle, that's okay. That just means that you're part of an ACD queue. Right? We have found that there's been issues with users who accidentally click on this on their user page, but then they sign into their queues and mark themselves ready. The system doesn't offer them calls, so it throws off the stats in the queues and may get people yelled at unnecessarily. So once a person is added to the ACD queues feature, they get the Dnd Toggle removed. All right, here we got the little question mark icon. Here you can chat with us. This opens up a chat window so you can speak to support so they can walk you through a particular feature. Learn more. This will open up a new tab to go to the support pages. Online store, that goes to store.virtualpbx.com. Again, opens up a new tab. And this is where you would purchase a VoIP phone, for example, or a router or headsets. Up here is the web phone link. This only shows up when you've added a web phone to your user. If you don't have a web phone on your user, this will be a blank spot. So there'll be 3 links. This will take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net and allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer with an internet connection to make and receive calls. Here we got the 3 horizontal line icon, or the menu icon. We sometimes also refer to it as the hamburger icon. And this takes you to other features of Dash. Right now we're in the dashboard. This is the major area of your Dash account. I've already mentioned ACD queues, but we'll get to all these others. And then lastly, the logout icon. All right, here in the middle, right, we got total users. So I have 10 people on my account. These are people who make and receive calls. If I am on a per user account, that means each of these users increased my bill, right? As I added them, increased my bill, right? So if I get rid of somebody, or like someone leaves the company, right, I can remove them from my account, and then I would have a smaller bill the following month. Then we have a breakdown of devices with a little pie chart. So first up, we have soft phone. So again, Dash is geared around VoIP, right? So voice over internet protocol, right? So makes use of your internet connection to make and receive calls. The soft phone, or what a soft phone is a software application, right? So it uses your computer, can use your cell phone these days because they're powerful enough, your tablet, right, with an internet connection to make and receive calls. Now, the soft phone can be an application from us, right? VirtualPBX soft phone application, but it could also be from other companies, right? There's many soft phone applications out there in the world, and you can make use of them, assuming they comply with SIP. All right, then down here, we've got the web phone, which again uses that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. The web phone is technically a subtype of soft phone. It came about later. It's actually relatively recent. I want to say like a year or 2. All right, then we have the cell phone, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And then down here we have SIP phone. SIP is a kind of physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a device that sits on your desk, right? This can be a Yailing phone, which is one of our more popular manufacturers, Polycom, Cisco, etc. Down here, I have unregistered devices, 11. So Dash knows when my VoIP devices are registered. That means connected to the account, right? So if a phone is registered, that means we can send calls to it or receive calls from it. And then just below that, we have total numbers, 15. This is phone numbers on the account. These are phone numbers that customers are most likely dialing to get to me, get to my business here. And a breakdown here. So first we have assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? An assigned number means you're using it. It goes someplace on your account, right? So basically someone can call it and have a chance to speak to somebody or leave a voicemail or join a conference or send a fax, etc. Spare number on your account, it goes, counts towards your allotment for your plan. You're just simply not using it right now, right? So you had a Halloween promotion and that promotion's obviously over. So you're like, okay, let's put this number in spare so we don't have to deal with calls coming in on a number we're not actively promoting right now, right? In terms of that allotment, that's gonna vary from plan to plan, right? Some plans have 2 phone numbers as part of their allotment. Some plans have 15, some may have more. For specifics on your plan, you will want to speak to our account services team, right? They can look up your plan, see how many phone numbers are part of your allotment, and what charges are there for having extra phone numbers, right? We're not going to stop you from adding additional phone numbers. That's up to you. But in case you want to know what that charge would be a good idea to talk to our account services team. All right, the next breakdown here, we have USDID and US toll-free. Right? US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? A 1-800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. Right, USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So you can have a number in Miami, Florida, or you can go over to Elmira, New York, get a number for there. Come over here to the West Coast, get a number in, say, San Francisco, etc. Down here, I have conference bridges. I have 3. This means I have enabled conferencing on 3 of my users, right? So 3 of my users can host or moderate a conference. Now we go up towards the top right. We've got my main numbers. I have 2 of them here, right? An 855 and a 408. So these numbers, these act the same way. They go to the same location. They're going to have the same main greeting. All right, then I've got my conference number, all right, another 408 number. This is a phone number everyone dials to get to the conference. So whether they're my staff members, my vendors, or my clients, they're all dialing this number to get to the conference rooms. Then I got a fax box number here. It's a 775. This enables my account to have inbound faxing, right? So this is my inbound fax number. Then here we've got a company directory and there's a download. This downloads a text file, right, to your computer, and it shows your users with their extension numbers. The soft phone directory, slightly different. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file and then upload it to your soft phone application from us. And this will show you the presence or status of your other users in relation to the soft phone, right? So if all your users are making use of our the VirtualPBX soft phone application, right? You download this file, then you will be able to see if they're actively on a call with the soft phone or not, right? So I can look and see, oh, coworker Mike, he's on a call. I'll have to wait till he's off so we can, talk about a customer we're both helping out, that sort of thing. All right, store discount code, right? Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store, right? store.virtualpbx.com. And then down here at the bottom, I've got my account realm. The account realm is used in a couple things. One, it's part of your VoIP devices, right? It's a key piece of information in making sure those can make and receive calls. So if you're using a third-party soft phone, for example, it's one of 3 key pieces of information you would use to program that application. Same with if you're using a third-party VoIP device, right? You didn't see your make and model in our auto provision list. You would use this to program it. The other thing this is used for is for sending a fax out. On Dash, sending a fax out is email to fax. So you create an email like you normally do, like you're gonna email your cousin Bob, right? start up a new email. In the to field of the email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number of the fax number that you're sending a fax to, your @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? The system doesn't care about what's in the body or even the title of the email. It just looks at the to header, and the from header, and then also whatever attachment. You get 1 attachment per email. All right, up here at the top, we have the caller ID. This is your main company caller ID, right? So you can, this pull down, you can select from either of your main, or any of your main numbers, excuse me. I would show that here, but sometimes the streaming software starts flickering when I use a pull down, so I'm going to try to avoid that. Next up, we have the company caller ID name. In the industry telecom, that's referred to as Cname, right? CNAM, excuse me. This allows you to input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters in this field. And when you click on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support Cname. And I say it that way because not every carrier supports Cname. Right? So when you pick up your VoIP phone and make an outbound call, right? This is a default phone number that would show up, and then the Cname information is what we would send out. Right? As the call goes through out to your destination, right? The phone number should always show up. The Cname information, if your call happens to route through a carrier who doesn't support Cname, the Cname information doesn't make it to your destination. Right? And ultimately, whoever you're sending the call to, right, the destination device, that carrier has final say about what shows up on their phones. So if they don't want to show the company name information, that's their right. So like calling to a cell phone provider, for example, for businesses, if I, like on my personal cell phone, I have to pay my cell phone provider $10 a month to have Cname show up for every call that comes into my phone, to my cell phone. Right? Personally, not worth it, so I don't pay for it. You know, I don't know if that's changing. I don't know how many carriers charge for that, but that's something to be aware of. All right, down here, we've got company emergency information, E911. You just want to put a valid address associated with this phone number. Right, so in every phone number, you can set up E911 for each phone number. That means you can also then, for each VoIP device, set up a different address for each of your VoIP devices. So that way, if one of your staff members picks up their VoIP phone and dials 911, they'll have accurate address information transmitted to emergency services. And then when you're done here, you click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own media files. We just click the upload right here, the upload button right there. Find the file on your computer and then click the upload arrow icon. Now, you can, Dash will play back .wav, right, .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached a user and pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That is when this file will play. Now, hours is actually part of main number. So let's just go to main number and we'll work our way all the way down. So at the top here, main company numbers. You see I have these 2 phone numbers here. If I decide I no longer want to use, say, this 855 number, I can click the Unassign button here, and that removes it as a main number. Now it's not removed from my account, right? It's still part, now it's a spare number. If I want to add a number, right, I can always add from spare, so I can add back that 855 or this 409 number. or I can buy new numbers. I have a choice of local or toll-free. Right, toll-free, pretty easy. You select the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click search. It'll give you a list to choose from. Click add. Click on buy numbers. It's verifying that the number was truly available, and then adding it to my account and activating it. And there it is. Local numbers, a little bit different in that you need to know the area code that you're searching for. One thing to keep in mind about area codes, especially in big metro areas, you're going to want to look up your overlays, right? So if I do a search for 310, I'm going to get nothing, right? This is the original Los Angeles area code. It's been exhausted for a while. So then I would want to look for either a nearby area code or an overlay. And then I can add a number. Same process beyond that. If there's an area code you absolutely have to have a phone number in and it comes up with there's nothing available, our porting team can attempt what's called a back order. Unfortunately, we won't get an ETA, and there's no guarantee on when a number is going to be available because we wait until someone gives up their phone number in that area code. Now, whenever you have a phone number on the account, you'll have the option to click on a little gear icon, right? So you can update the caller ID, right? So each phone number can have its own outbound Cname information, as well as the ability to accept inbound Cname information. Right, here's where you adjust the E911 for a specific phone number. Oh, you also have Prepend. So Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays, right? So this gives your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about, right? So special promotion, or you have a new location, right? This will give your staff like, oh, all right, this is people calling about our new facility, etc. All right, next up, we have your office hours strategy. For new accounts, you start off at 24-hour open office. Right, up to you if you want to switch it over to custom office hours. If you do use custom office hours, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of it. And then in these boxes to the right, you enter your open hours in 24-hour or military time. And it's a pull down, so you can easily select what you want to use. Down here at the bottom, which I don't know how clearly that shows up on YouTube, there's an option there to say you're closed for lunch, right? So like if you're a medical office and everyone goes to lunch at the same time, you can put a check mark here and say, yes, you're closed for lunch. Next up, we have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark in front of it. And then over here to the right, you click on add holiday. You have your option for single day, date range, and advanced. Each of these creates a new row. So here, for instance, we have Halloween. You give it a name, right? You select the month and the day, and then you would click on Save Changes, right? For date range, like I have here for Xmas break, again, you select the start date and an end date. The only caveat here is we recommend to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day together, right? Because there's no year indicator. But beyond that, no real limitations. And then the advanced option here is this retreat where you select a month, and then this second pull down, you have your options of 1st through 5th as well as last, and then you have day of the week. And then when you're done, you would just click on Save Changes. Now, one thing to keep in mind for your office holidays, for any holiday that the date changes, right? So like President's Day, for example, right, doesn't always have the same day in February. When you update it, you probably don't want to do it right away, right? So it's President's Day is usually observed on a Monday, right? You don't want to update it on a Tuesday because odds are you just put yourself closed for 2 days in a row, right? Wait till like the following Wednesday. All right, now we have the big one here, incoming call handling. So this is, again, reference to our main numbers. And when calls come in during my open hours, these are my options, right? These are my after hours options. And here are my holiday options. Right, so the same basic options for all three. So here I have calls coming in and they're going to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. All right, here on my left, I have my main menu, right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through the phone system. I can click on Add Route to give myself more options. Again, I would use the pull downs here, but again, the system sometimes doesn't like it. This first pull down, you have the default action, as well as 0 through 9, and the star key. The second pull down, right, you have the smart directory, right, so people can dial by name. Then you've got any user, right, so directly to a person. You can set it directly to a device. We don't always recommend that just because if the device doesn't have voicemail, then the call can just keep ringing, or you don't, there or no option to get the voicemail. You can send a caller to a media file. Just bear in mind that once that media file stops playing, the call ends. So not always the greatest experience. Groups, these are departments. Advanced call flows, this would be if you're making use of submenuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. And those two options then have their own greetings with their own menu options. That would be what submenuing is. And then voicemail boxes. Over here to the right, you've got your greeting options. So first up is text-to-speech. You just type in what you want it to say. This allows you to enter in about 250 characters, not words, characters. You click update, and then you would click save and save changes. One thing to keep in mind about the text-to-speech greeting is the system uses the same file names, right? So if I come in here tomorrow and change it and click update again, it's going to save it, but now I'll have 2 files that have the same name, main open hours menu, right? So especially I typically recommend the text-to-speech greeting for startup companies, right, or people who aren't familiar with PBX systems, basically just so you get a feel for getting a greeting in place, and then once you figure out how you want calls to flow into the system, right, it's an easy way to change it. However, I do recommend after you make an update to a text-to-speech greeting, after you click save, go to the greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, find that file and change it to something you'll recognize, right? Just, you can say test greeting 1, right, versus test greeting 2, etc. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can choose from an existing recording, right? So here's that main open hours menu. Oops, see, didn't like the pop-up that time, but you can find any other media file that you have on the account. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system says pick up a phone registered on this account. What that means is a VoIP phone on the account. However, you can go down under settings, and this setting right here, allow dialing or allow outside recording. If you turn this on, then you're saying cell phone and landlines can call in and make a change to your main greeting. Now, you would still dial your main number, and then you enter the PIN number. The PIN number is specific to the time of day, right? So this is my day open hours PIN number, right? So if I called after 5 p.m., it was no longer going to work, right? Because now I'm in after hours. right? And then it records your greeting. So for a new account, right, you don't have a greeting in place. So the first time you call, the system will tell you that no greeting has been set up for this menu, and then it will prompt you for the PIN number. And then it walks you through recording it. If your account is already established, then when you call your main number, you're going to hear your main greeting, right? So when you hear your main greeting, if you enter the PIN number, right, the system will recognize that and then take you into recording a new greeting. Now, when you record a new greeting, the system doesn't allow you to give it a file name, right? So in the instance where you already have a greeting in place, you're overwriting the existing greeting. I bring that up just because we're coming into the holiday season, so people might be changing from their normal, most of the year greeting to a holiday greeting. You may not want to lose your normal greeting. So in that case, I would say when you getting ready to record your holiday greeting over the phone, select a different file choose from an existing file or existing recording, excuse me, because that way you're saving your normal main file from being overwritten. All right, next up we have professional recording services. When you click order, this will take you to a new site hosted by our partners over at Snap Recordings. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, so you can have a UK English greeting play if you want, or Australian, etc. They also have Spanish and French, so you can do multilingual greetings. They have also what they refer to as hold treatment, right? So a music file and a script being read. They handle their own billing. They deliver to you via email, so that you would simply upload your own file. All right, now we're on settings. So first up here, we have number of retries on missed dial. This is essentially how many times can your inbound caller make a mistake. I think the system defaults you onto 1 or 2, and that's typically plenty, right? So basically, caller comes in, they hear your greeting, let's say they press 7, right? That's not a valid option on this system here. The system will tell them that was invalid and then play the greeting again, allow them to enter in another option. If they hit 7 again for the second time, who knows why, then the system will either, in this case, send them to this default action, which is the Smart PBX directory. If I don't have a default action, then the system will say, tell them they have invalid entry, or we didn't recognize your entries, and we'll say goodbye. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the inbound caller is done, right? So in that previous example, right, the caller came in and they pressed 7. The system is going to wait to a count of 10 and it goes, oh, you're done. And that's not valid, and give them that invalid entry message. I normally say take this down to 5 or less, just because 10 seems like a long time to me. That's just a personal, or I guess a reflection of my impatience. Allow outside recording, we talked about under the recorded over your phone. So then we have allow dialing of extensions. By default, this is on, right? Actually, the default for allow outside recording is off, right? So basically, callers can come in, they hear your greeting. If they know the extension, right? So 777 is a valid extension, for example. Customer could hit that, and the system will transfer them to that extension, right? If you turn that off, that means they can't enter an extension number, even if they know it, right? The system says, nope, you only get these menu options, and that's it. And then we have the suppress playing of invalid entry. Again, by default, this is actually on, or off, sorry. Right, so if I turn it on, that means the system will not play that invalid entry message, right? We're suppressing it, right? With it off, that means if someone makes a mistake, the system lets the inbound caller know that that was invalid. Now, any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or the settings, you need to click Save here, right? It will close the box, and then it takes you back to incoming call handling, and you need to click Save Changes here, right? So you're clicking Save twice. All right. Sorry about that, little coughing fit there. All right, for my after hours, let's say I'm gonna have calls come in and I'm gonna ring it to date. So offer the call to David initially. If he doesn't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist, right? So this is a live operator answer option. Now, because I'm in after hours, right, my settings here are different. So I have a default going to my smart directory. I could add additional routes if the system would let me. Or I guess my streaming software would let me. But basically, again, that 0 through 9 plus star and the default route. Because it's after hours, I probably would have a different greeting play. But beyond that, the settings are all the same. Other than the recorded over the phone, the PIN number would be different. Now here, this pull down here, right? So you can select users, you can select devices. Probably what's most advantageous after let's see where it should be groups. Here we go. Right, if you send it to a set of groups, right, that way that's a group of people, right? So now I'm offering the call to this group for 20 seconds or what have you. Now, by default, on this poll, actually, especially for items 2 and 3 here, right, whatever you select by default, the system offers the call for 20 seconds. For groups, the system will pay attention to the group ring duration settings. So that's another advantage for groups. All right, the third option here, right, call comes in and I have it set this way, right? Skip to voicemail and it goes right to my main voicemail box. Now, I can still select groups or users, right, a media file, etc. But like for a small business where like, hey, I'm running my own, say I'm running my own like comic book store. I'm like, I'm going to be closed for the holidays because no one really comes in and I want a break, right? So then I can say, hey, just have callers go right to voicemail and I'll check my messages and get back to them when I can. That sort of thing. This last option over here, calls go to an advanced call flow, right? In this case, this is going to a secondary attendant. This could be because I'm having like my other business handle all the calls for all my businesses, or just temporarily having a shift in my business model. All right, main conference number. So you can have multiple conference numbers if you want. So you can add from spare or buy new ones, just like we did under main number, and it would add it directly to here. Likewise, you can unassign a number if you no longer want it as a conference number. You also have the ability to enter a custom text-to-speech greeting, right? 250 characters. Now, without this enabled, the system, when you call your conference number, the system says welcome to the conference and then prompts you for your conference room, the conference number they're going to join, and then the PIN number, right? That would likely be information you emailed to your conference participants. Your main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. But once you've assigned it, you can edit your fax box here. And then first up, you have the inbound notification email. And then you enter in an email address. This is when an inbound fax comes in, the system will automatically send an email to this email address. It will include some details about the fax call, right? Like the phone number it came from, the date, the time. And it will include a PDF attachment, right? So this person or group of people, if you're using like a distribution list, would then be able to double click on the attachment and view the PDF. Email permissions. This allows you to enter either an email address or your company domain. right? In this case, we use a domain, so everyone with the virtualpbx.com email address can send a fax out on the account, even if they're not a user on this account. All right, next up we have auto attendance. Now, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, meaning that it's available on some plans and not all. Now, there are two major use cases for this. The first I've already mentioned is submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. And the other would be if you have multiple businesses, right? And each of those businesses has their own main greeting and their own phone number, but you want all the calls to be handled by the same staff people, right? So like you have like 10 different people that you've hired, and say you've got a cleaning business and a dog walking business, you can have all the calls handled by those 10 people. You start off by clicking Add Attendant, right? You give it a name, and you need to give it an extension number. Then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on its name, and this is the main option here, is do you want it to be available in main menu, right? That means it's a submenu option, or leave it as unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant. Right, then you have the option here for phone numbers, right? So you can buy new numbers or add spare numbers. Here's your extension options, right? So you can unassign the existing extension, add a new one. And then here under settings, you click on the little wrench icon. And once it decides to load, you see here, I have my open hours, after hours, and holidays. Now those times, right, match what we already set up under main menu or main numbers, right? So if you're having separate businesses, they have to have, by default, right, they have to have the same open hours, right? Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 sort of thing, and the same holidays. Now for your attendants, they only have the option to have send callers to the virtual receptionist, and then you set up the menu options, the greetings, and the settings, and then you would click on Save and Save Changes. And that's it. So if either of these two use cases are something you want and you don't have the auto attendance tab here, then you're going to want to talk to our account services team, and they can tell you what plan you would need to change to get that. Next up, we have the Devices tab. This shows all your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, right? Meaning we can send calls to it, right? Black means you've turned it off, right? It's disabled. And then red means it's not registered, meaning we can't send calls to it right now. Up here at the top, you can click Add Devices. And first up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical device that sits on your desk. You have a variety of manufacturers and models to choose from. Some like Yealink have a ton. Some like H-Tech, not so many. Right? But you find your make and model. You need to give the device a name, right? You can call it Doug's phone. And then you need the MAC address. Now the MAC address is unique to each phone. Typically, there's a sticker on the back of the phone that has MAC or MAC address. Sometimes some manufacturers might call it serial number, but it's like a 12-digit set of numbers and letters. Also, the other way to find the MAC address is when the phone's plugged in under like basic settings or menu status, there should be a label for MAC, and that's what the information we would put here. You would then click on Create Device. And the only other thing within the dashboard that you would need to do then is assign that phone to a user. However, to get the phone to actually work, you need to log into the phone's web user interface, the web UI. And you need to enter in a URL under the auto provisioning section. For the specifics of that, you want to go to the virtualpbx.com site under the support pages. About a third of the way down on the right under auto provisioning phone, you're looking for the document called auto provisioning phones. Right? That document is going to have screenshots of these manufacturers, right? So we'll have screenshots for each one of these manufacturers for what the user interface looks like, where to go and how to get there within that user interface, and then the correct syntax for the URL. And basically so you follow those instructions, it's basically you click, after you enter the information, you click save, and usually you click something like auto provision or update sometimes. Basically what that does is tell the phone, okay, go to the internet, go to that URL that you entered. It gets its config file. The phone will reboot a couple times, and then it should show up as a green device on the account. Cell phone and landline, same process, or have the same process, right? You give it a name, and then in the number area you put +1, area code and phone number, right? And then you would click on create device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right? So that's the format. Under advanced options, this is the default for the system. So call comes in, we send the call out to this cell phone, right? The cell phone rings, you pick up, and you'll hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call, right? It then connects call to you. That's great if it's going to your cell phone. If, however, you use this to send it to, say, your after-hours answering service, maybe not so great, because an automated answering service is essentially a computer initially, or it goes to an auto attendant initially. It doesn't know when to press 1 to accept that call. So in that instance, right here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, put a check mark in front of that, click on Save Changes. So now when we send a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call right away. We don't wait for anything else like pressing 1, right? So great for going to an automated answering service. If it's actually going to your cell phone and your cell phone voicemail picks up, that's still a connected call. So now your inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that. That's great. That's wonderful. Some people don't, right? So depending on which camp you fall into, will determine if you want to have that check mark there if your cell phone is a device on your account. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So when we send a call out to this cell phone, right, when the phone rings, the person will pick up, they will see the inbound caller's phone number, right? So customer Mary is calling, I would see customer Mary's phone number on my cell phone. If I don't recognize that number, these days I let that call go to voicemail because I'm tired about hearing about extending my auto warranty. Now, if I uncheck this, right, the keep original caller ID, now when the call gets sent to my cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, I see my main company phone number. Hopefully I recognize my own company phone number. I'm like, oh, this is a work call. This is worth it to at least accept the call to make sure, see if it's legit, and I get some more business. Now, what is that main company phone number? If we go back to the dashboard real quick, right, it's this caller ID phone number. That was what would show up on my cell phone. Soft phone, first up, this warning message. Essentially, be wary about dialing 911 from your mobile VoIP soft phone, right? Because you might be in a different location. And then here, the system is defaulting you to use a third-party soft phone, right? So you're using a soft phone application from Counterpath. You give it a name, and then you would copy and paste this SIP username, right? If you click on the SIP password box, it will reveal the SIP password, so then you can copy and paste that. And again, you would use that realm. And those 3 pieces of information are what you need to program or provision that soft phone application. For any device that you've added, you can always click on the little wrench icon to the right. Right, so you can see the name, you can see the MAC address. Right, for a cell phone, right, you would see the name of the cell phone number. For VoIP devices, you have additional options here where you could see the SIP information. Audio for the codecs, these are the base codecs that you need. You don't need any of these others. Restrictions typically will match whatever the account has set up for it. External caller ID, right? You can change it to any phone number on the account that you have set up. Right, here's where you would set the emergency caller ID. Again, the account default or any other E911's addresses you have set up. Miscellaneous. The only thing that we typically see is this one here, allow reprovision. You have to unlock it first. Right, so for some reason the phone stopped working, you factory reset the phone, you unlock it, and then you would reprovision. And then some phones have combo keys, so you can set those up here for things like presence or parking, etc. All right, the greetings manager. You see all the different greetings on the account here. Right, you see their names. The source upload, right, uploaded the file. Right, TTS, text to speech. And then recording that was recorded over the phone. You can download any of these files, so then you can listen to it on your computer. And if you click on the little wrench icon, this is where you would change the name or delete a file that's no longer in use. Up here at the top, you can add a new recording, right? Basically upload it, right? Give it a name, find the file on your computer, and then click Create Greeting. It will then upload it to this list. Next up is groups. This is sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups. Generally speaking, a department. Right, up at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members who are in the group, and you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on their name. You can always change the name. And then you have the group call attempts. This box, you have little arrows so you can change it. This is basically how many times the inbound call is offered to your staff members, right? So in this case, twice, right? But I can decrease that, say, okay, I only want to offer to my staff members once. I'm like, oh, they're saying they're not having enough time, so I can increase it to 3. And then I click on Save Changes. Next up is the members box. All right, so here's my staff members, and this is the order that calls are being offered to my staff. Up here on the top, might be a little hard to see because it's grayed out, but these are timestamps. And this last box you can edit. Now the default for a new group is 120, right? So 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. I can also click on this distribute button, and this will equal out or equalize the times that the calls are offered to my staff members here. Now, for groups or for calls going to groups, your users can make use of cell phones, landlines, or VoIP devices, right? The system is fine with any of those. But when a call is offered to, say, Rupert here, all his devices that are on his user will ring, right? When a call comes into the group, right? Same with tester, user, and Mike, etc. Right? Basically, as the call goes through, if say Mike has 4 VoIP phones on his account, all 4 of them will ring when the call reaches him from this group. It's not going to pay attention. There's a user feature called Follow Me. The group calls do not follow that. They just say, nope, I'm going to ring everybody. Now, these green bars here are sliders. So you can extend the ringing time for each user. And that can be important also for your cell phone users because it takes more time to offer calls to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline. So you might want to give them more time. So this setup here is referred to as blast ringing. So it's ringing all my agents at the same time until one of them picks up. So let's say call comes in and Mike answers the call. He's helping a customer. second call comes in that instance, Mike's going to hear a call waiting beep, right, until one of his other staff members here picks up the call. Now, if I go back to distribute, right, now this is going in order. Let's say I have a special project for Rupert. I don't want him taking calls first every time, right? I can click and drag his name down to the bottom. Now, I still haven't adjusted the order yet, right? Because let me mix this up a little bit, right? So again, Rupert's still first, but if I click distribute now he's last. All right, so those are the basic routing options that are available to calls going to a group. And then you click on Save Changes. Right, groups have extensions, and that's so people can transfer calls to them or from them, or mostly to them, I should say. Groups can have their own phone number. Now, bear in mind that for users or groups that have their own phone number, that phone number does not pay attention to your hours of operation, meaning that this phone number is available 24/7. And then we've got the group features here. First up is ring back. So if you enable this, you can upload a media file, click on Save Changes. So by default, when your inbound caller comes into a group, right, they hear that ringing sound, right? And basically what that is feedback from your user's devices. What ringback is it replaces that ringing sound with a media file, right? So your caller comes in and the system reaches out to your user's devices. We get that ringback sound coming back to us, then we play the media file. So if for some reason your user's device doesn't give us that ring sound back, no media file plays. That's the only drawback for ringback. The easiest way around that is just to have multiple users available right away or make use of WAV phones. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Next action, if you enable this, right? If no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? You got to pull down here. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants that's available in main menu. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send a call to another group, excuse me. You can send callers to another user or to a voicemail box. If your account has ACD queues, you can also send it to a queue. Allow call forward. If this is enabled, you're basically allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not at their normal desk phones, but they still want to pick up calls. And then lastly, you have caller Id Prepend. Again, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can either add text or numbers to the caller ID, and this gives your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. All right, numbers shows all your numbers on the account and where they're going, right? You have the little gear icon here so you can update things like the caller ID, the E911. In your spare numbers, right, you can buy numbers here, right? Local or toll-free, so you can add them here. If you want to actually remove a number from your account, you would click on the box in front of it, and now you see I have a delete option here. It says, are you sure? Delete the numbers, and I have successfully removed it from my account. You also have the option here to start a port request. You give it a name, you tell if it's local or toll-free. You click next, and then you need to upload a file. Basically, it's asking you to upload the bill. Then it's going to ask you for the address. It's going to ask you for what phone numbers you're porting. It will give you the ability to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA. Then there's 4 checkboxes that you need to check, and then you submit your documents. You'll get an email right away saying you've submitted your documents to us. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team. That means that's basically saying, yes, we did get your documents and we have submitted the request. Here's what to expect. Some notes about porting. A completed and signed LOA. So the LOA is going to have to ask you for things like your company information, right? The company name and the address. That should match what your current carrier has on file for you. It does need to be signed. That can be either you printed out and signed it physically and scanned it back in, or you have a digital version of your signature that you just pasted in there. For toll-free numbers, typically takes about 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. If we get a rejection, we don't always get a lot of details. It's a relatively generic message, basically saying like address mismatch or end user mismatch, etc. We typically do send you that information saying, hey, we got it wrong. We do double check to make sure we didn't enter in information incorrectly or there wasn't some kind of oddity with the paperwork that we received. And we do everything we can before telling you, okay, you have to go to your current carrier to get information. All right, users shows all your users on the account. Gray icon, or the gray person icon, that's your standard user. A person with the blue suit, that's your admins. Up here at the top is where you add a new user. And you enter the first and last name, right? The email address used for login, right? That has to be unique for each user. You create a password for them, and then you select an extension. Now, the system is suggesting 1008, but I can type in whatever I want. All right, then you have the option to create a voicemail box for the user at the same time, which is typically recommended. Then you have the option here, do you want to include them in the user directory? You can always change this later. And then we have send emails to an alternate address. So by default, right, the system sends communication to the email address used for login, right? So like voicemail notifications or password resets. If you want to have, or if your user wants to have email sent to a different location, you check mark here and then enter in a different email address here. And then right here at the bottom, send credentials to the user. Now, if you're only creating one user, you just click on create user. If you need to add more people, create user and add another. Once a user is created, if you click on a name, right, you can change their name. And then over here, we have your option to change your credentials, right? So you can change their email address, their password. You can also send them the password reset email. Voicemail box PIN, right? You can enter a 4-digit PIN number for your users. Now, for your VoIP phone users, you don't have to create a PIN number for them. They can pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98, it's a feature code, that automatically logs them into their voicemail box that you created for them when you created the user. The first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number and then walk them through creating their voicemail greeting. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. And then here's the option for the company directory. Over here to the right, this is where you would change a user into an admin or an admin into a user, followed up by the time zone that a user is in, right, which would be good for the timestamps for voicemails. This is the display language. right? So you have English, French, German, or Russian, and what the web pages will display at. And we've got the ringing timeout. The default is 20 seconds. 20 seconds is plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. It may not be enough time for a cell phone. In terms of how PBX systems work, right? Call comes in, goes to your user, and then we send it to the user devices. Right? When we send calls to, say, a landline, right? Send it to the landline telecom, they go, yep, it's right here. Send it to this phone. Right? They know exactly where the landline is. Versus call comes in, we're sending it to a cell phone provider. Cell phone provider says, hold up, we got to find them first. Right? They ping cell phone towers, they find you, then they send the call through. It's that delay is why on a PBX system, you might need to have a longer ring duration or ringing timeout for calls going to a cell phone, like 45 seconds. Right? Your cell phone user won't notice. Right? They just say, hey, my phone's ringing, pick up, start talking. All right, users extension box. Again, you can add multiple extensions to a user if you want, or unassign and add a new one. As I mentioned, users can have their own phone numbers, and this phone number works 24/7. Devices, you can add devices here to a user, right? SIP phone, cell phone, etc. Soft phone, actually, what is, he already has a soft phone. Oh, as an example. So for the VirtualPBX soft phone, you're only allowed one per email address. Right, so I don't have an option here to add the VirtualPBX soft phone, only a third party, because Aaron already has a soft phone. If I go down here to Peter, who doesn't have any devices, we'll see if it'll allow me to add a soft phone here. Depends what email address he used. All right, so here I have this toggle at the bottom that says use third-party application. If I click on that, now it says use VirtualPBX application. However, now I get this warning. Hey, this email address that's on this user, he already has a soft phone. So now I can't create it for him after all. But the way to get around that, right, is you have an alternate address. And then we'll see if that will allow me to do it here. So then I give it a name, right? So now I'm going to be using the VirtualPBX soft phone app. And then I click Save Changes. So now, once it's done saving, right, that alternate address I use is going to get an email saying, hey, your soft phone is ready for use. Here's your username and password, right? Because it's different than my Dash login. And then download links so I can get that application. Beyond that, the other thing I wanted to show here is the web phone. I find it easier to add the web phone directly to a user because you just give it a name, you click on Create Device, click on Save Changes. The web phone, when you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it asks you to log in. It uses your Dash login information on the web phone page. So that's why, to me, it's easier just to create the web phone directly on the user. That way you know, okay, now this person has a web phone, they can go and use their Dash login. All right, next up we got user features. So caller ID number, right? This only works if a user has their own phone number. And if you turn it on, that means this is the outbound caller ID when this user makes a call from their web devices. Call forwarding, right? You have off, on, error, failover mode. Now, your staff members can turn on call forwarding on their own. That's either through the user portal or with feature codes on their VoIP phone. Failover mode is something an admin would set up, right? So basically, you choose failover mode, you select desk phone or mobile, you put +1 area code and phone number, and then save changes. What this means is that this user's VoIP phone becomes unregistered. The system detects that, and if a call happens to come into the user at that time, the system will automatically forward to the phone number you designated, right, like their cell phone. All right, hot desking. This is a VoIP feature. You create a hot desk ID. If you use 4-digit extensions, then I just say make use of your extension numbers. Easy, and then you click on Save Changes. What this is in a shared office environment or like a hybrid scheduling environment. It allows your staff members to log into the phone that they sit at for the day, right? So I come into the office today, I sit at desk number 7, I pick up the VoIP phone, the handset, I hit *11. That turns on hot desking. All right, then ask me for my hot desk ID, and then it tells me that calls will be sent to this device. So for the rest of my workday, any calls coming to my user, whether I'm in a group, a queue, or someone enters my extension number, or they transfer to me, gonna ring at that phone I'm sitting at. Right, end of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12, right, to turn off hot desking, and I go home. Right, next time I have to come into the office is Friday. I come rolling in, someone's already at desk number 7. I say, hi, Alicia, how's it going? I keep walking, and I sit down at desk number 21 and do the same thing. *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to me at desk 21. Voicemail box, right, was already enabled and created when the user was created. And this is a pretty standard setting or setup. One thing to note, Transcribe, that's actually a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out into the email notification. That's as best as it can, right? Because sometimes it's hard to pick up what people say for a computer. But voicemail to email is enabled, and we have attached voicemails to that email, right? So basically, call comes in, they leave a voicemail, email is sent out to the user, right? Their email address used for login. There's some information about the call, right? The date, the time, phone numbers involved, attachment and MP3. They can just double click and listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages. So if your staff doesn't want to call in and delete messages or go through the user portal and delete messages, then what you might want to do is put a check mark here where it says delete messages from the database after the notification has been sent, right? So then in that instance, right, system sends off the email, it immediately deletes the voicemail from the voicemail box. Fax box. So users can have their own individual fax boxes if you want them to. You would click enabled, and then you need to decide, are you using a phone number or an extension? I recommend making use of a phone number because that means that user can then both send and receive faxes. If you assign them an extension number on their fax box, they can only ever receive faxes. They'll not be able to send out. And that has to do with because when the system processes email to fax out, it checks the user for their own fax box. If they have one, it says, great, I'm using what the parameters of your personal fax box for the outbound caller ID information, which means if you only have an extension number, it only grabs the extension number, which is invalid caller ID, and the fax will fail. Again, typically not necessary if you have a main fax box, unless you have staff members who get a lot of faxes. Right? That's like part of their key job features or functions. Here we got the conference bridge. Right? If you enable it, the only thing you need to do as an admin is create a PIN number. And this is a participant PIN number. Right? And then you would click on Save Changes. Your user can adjust their PIN numbers for the conference room via the user portal. So then you would just click on Save Changes at the bottom there. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. So when you first enable it, you then need to tell the system, okay, what phones am I going to use? So first you would uncheck the devices you want to use. And then you see you've got sliders. You can slide across. Right, you got your ring time across the top here. Right, default is 120 seconds. And you have that distribute option. Right, just like ring groups. And just like ring groups, I can change the order and click distribute again. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You would just click enabled and then upload a file. Again, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Customize call recording. When you enable it, again, you need to tell the system what kind of calls is it going to record. Right, so first up, inbound internal, right? That's a coworker call, right? Coworker Bob called me, right? Inbound external, right? Customer Mary called me, right? Outbound internal, I called coworker Bob, right? Outbound external, I called customer Mary. And then you would click on Save Changes. And then you've got the option to Do Not Disturb. All right, voicemail boxes. Shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any user voicemail box, right, will have their user field filled out. You can create a voicemail box up here for like your ring groups. You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. On any voicemail box, you can click on the little wrench icon so you can pull up that information so you can record a new greeting for it over the phone. Under advanced greeting media, you can upload files directly to a voicemail box. Now, the media file, this is your default or your normal greeting, right? The temporary, this would be the vacation or out of office greeting. If you have a file selected here under temporary, it will supersede the media file, right? So basically, when you no longer need the temporary file to play, you want to make sure you set this back to none. And then your normal file will play. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box, you can add additional ones. You just click Add here, and then you enter the email address. Right. Once you're done, you would click on Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, you just keep clicking Add to add more people. And then under Options. So once a voicemail box has a greeting and a recipient, you can click here in front of Already Set Up. Here's your option to attach messages to voicemail, right? That's by default on. Here's the option to delete them after notification. Right, here's Transcribe if you have that feature on your account. Announce only mode, if you use this basically means this voicemail box is out there to give out a message, right? It's not going to accept any inbound voicemail messages. Advanced routing. This is where direct inward system access is housed, or DISA. And what this is allows your cell phone or landline users to call into your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. They can log in over the phone, essentially, and then make an outbound call. When they make that outbound call, it won't be showing their cell phone number as the outbound caller ID. It will be showing your main number. All right, so in order to get this set up, you would click on Enable. And then click Edit Settings. I always recommend you click on Add Extension and give it an extension number, right? So now what you've done is when a staff member calls in, right? They get to the main voice, or call into your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. They enter in the extension number, and then they have to enter in this PIN. Then the system will prompt them for the PIN number. After that, they'll hear dial tone again. So then they just need to enter in the area code and phone number, and then they make that outbound call. Now, by default, on new accounts, this feature is not enabled. And that is because having it enabled increases the chance of fraud happening on your account. Not because of something you do, but more of something else. Someone can figure this out, and then they can make outbound calls on your account, and you may not know about it right away. Oh, in terms of the outbound caller ID, that's under the dashboard, that caller ID at the top that we looked at earlier. That's the phone number that would show up. Now, one way to keep track of your outbound calls would be under your call logs. Switch it over this month. So the little yellow arrow to the left, that's a call leaving the system. You can see here, this was from a web phone, and it lasted like 40 seconds. Right, green arrow to the right, that's a call that came into the system. And you see here where it was offered. It was offered to this device here, like a soft phone. Right, the call lasted, well, total time was 41 seconds, but only 24 to the device, right? So it was ringing for a little bit or listening to a greeting first. Now, you can click on the little fire hydrant icon here, and that reports the call. What that means is that creates an email that is going to support@virtualpbx.com. I do recommend typing in the body of that email what you experienced, right? Like whether it was bad audio, right? Like choppy call quality, or like your phone didn't ring, that sort of thing. If you go to custom, right, you can change your date range. You can always download a particular call log. It downloads it as a CSV file. In the system, you can go back 1 year for call logs. If you have a particular busy system, you might have to break it down by week versus going for a whole month. And then you can download those files. Just bear in mind that if you do need call log data, I would strongly recommend you do that like on a monthly basis. So that way you don't have to worry about forgetting and having to go back and potentially lose days or more of call logs you need to have. All right, feature codes. I've mentioned a couple of these. These are all here on your dashboard. They're also on our support pages. There's our feature codes document. There's also a phone commands cheat sheet. It's a one-page PDF that has a little brief description about what each of the feature codes does or allows you to do. That's pretty much the dashboard. So let's go over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. There are two kinds of queues that VirtualPBX offers. This one here are standard queues. We also have ACD Queues Pro. There is a separate demo video on our YouTube channel for the ACD Queues Pro, so I would recommend taking a look at that as well. If you end up being interested in queues, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. As I mentioned, the queues are add-on features, but they're only available on particular plans as well. So you might need to change your plan, right? That might increase your cost. And then you have the add-on cost of the queues themselves. Let's go ahead and create a queue here. We'll give it a name of support. And then you have the option here of a phone number or an extension. Right, versus like a group can have both an extension and a phone number, right? Queues can only have one. So then we go into the queue configuration. Oops. All right, so first up, you have your queue routing strategy. Round robin, it's going to equalize out over time. There is, on the standard queues, there's the option to ring all, right? Ring everybody at the same time. There is least offered, right? So basically whoever's had the least amount of offered calls gets the next call that comes in. There's least calls, which is the least amount of connected calls, right? So let's say Bob has spoken to 2 people, Mary has spoken to 5. Under least calls, right? Bob gets the next call. I think those are all of them. Hold treatment, standard queues, you basically have the ability to upload a music file, right? .wave, .ogg, .mp3, etc. On the pro queues, you can have things like announce their position in line, play a music file, right? Announce their expected wait time, play a different music file, etc. Queue timeout, this is how much time a caller can wait on hold. This is on top of the number of people who are, sorry, this is their total hold time, 3,600 seconds. Queue call limit, if 0 means, this, so you can limit the number of calls that are waiting on hold, right? 0 means there's no limit. If I put in 4 here, that means 4 people can wait on hold on top of people who are already on a call with my staff members. Timeout immediately if empty. If none of my staff members are logged in, right, and I enable this, that means if a call comes in, the system will treat it as if that call already hit that 3,600 seconds. An escalation queue, right, basically means if my staff members are busy, I can send callers to a second queue. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 3,600 seconds, what do I want to do with the call? I can do nothing, meaning the call ends. Right? I can send it to another attendant. I can send it to a specific device, right? Specific phone. I can send them to a smart directory. I can send them to my groups, a media file or user, or a voicemail box. All right, then we got agent recovery timer, right? Basically how much time they can wait, how much time the system waits before it offers a call to an agent after they finished a call. And this is measured in seconds. Then you got force away on, reject, or missed. So if an agent misses a call, then I can force them to in away mode, right? So that means they have to manually make themselves ready once they're actually there to take a call. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds, right? 20 is the default. Currently on VoIP phones, or currently on queues, you can only accept calls with VoIP phones, right? Web phone, soft phone, or SIP phone. So 20 seconds is typically fine. And then you click on create queue. It says your has been successfully created. So now I'm going back to the queues page. I have a queue here, but I have no agents in it. So next I'd go to members. I have 1 user, but if I click on manage members, I can click on people and then click on add as members. So now they're part of this queue, or they're available to be in any queue. Right now, if I click on this queue itself, I can add agents, right? And then I click and drag my staff members over. Oops. Now I click Save Changes. Right, so now I have 3 potential users. Once users are added, you can then make someone be a manager. Now, once your staff members are added to a queue, right, they would go to the hamburger icon. They would click here on ACD queues. They would click on Begin Session. Right, so I show up as a little red icon here because I'm in away mode. Over here is a little phone icon. They should click on this and they need to select one of their devices. And that's the device that they're going to receive their queue calls on. Then they would click here on their status. They'd mark themselves as ready. And now I'm green and I can take calls. Right. lunchtime, then I would microwave myself away, right? End of my shift, I would just end session. Now, anytime they come back in, they shouldn't have to adjust their queue device, right? Once they have that set, as long as they haven't changed, like if, obviously if that device gets deleted, they would have to select a new device. If it gets deleted and recreated, they would still have to go in and reselect it. And same if the user was deleted and recreated. Right here, you can always come back here and add more people to your queues. And likewise, if there are multiple queues, you can add people to some queues and not in other queues. And usually by the next time I log in, my Dnd toggle will disappear now that I added myself as a queue member. All right, blacklists. This is an included feature. It's on all accounts. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so you would click on Edit Blacklists. For most of you, would click Add to create a new list. But since I already have one here, I'll click on this one here. You give your list a name, and then you have this option here, Block Anonymous. If you turn this on, that means if we don't get a valid inbound caller ID, we're blocking that call. Right? They're going to get a busy tone. After that, you just click Add, and then you put +1 area code and phone number for phone numbers you're going to block. Right? And you just keep clicking Add and adding those phone numbers that you want to have blocked. Then you would click on Save. You go back to Settings. And then you make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected. And then you click Update. And now this list is active. Right? So any phone numbers on this list, try to call any of my phone numbers on my account. Right? Then they're going to get blocked. This is not going to block someone who directly calls your cell phone number. Right? We're only blocking calls that are coming in on your VirtualPBX account phone numbers. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Right, first one right here, if we click Edit here, we'll get into the settings. You give it a name, you choose a phone number to display, right, caller ID display. This has to be a phone number on your account. And then here are the conditions. So what I had set up here is whenever any of my staff members call a 408 phone number from their VoIP phones, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 phone number up here. Oops. Right, this 408-214 number. The other way you can do it is like this LA area feature code, where I created a feature code, right? *550. So now my staff members pick up their VoIP phone, hit *550, and then whatever phone number they're reaching out to. The system will then put in this 323 phone number as their outbound caller ID. All right, faxes. This goes to your fax manager. It's included on all accounts. You can see your inbound faxes. You can check your outbound faxes. Right here, we got a success back on the 4th. Here's the number it came from. Here's the number it went to. Number of pages. I can download it. I can also click on this little icon here at the far right to get an idea of what happened, which is a little bit more useful on failed faxes. So here on the outbound faxes, if you see a failure here, this means it was a failure in communicating to the other fax machine, right? So the system got your email, it converted it into analog signal, we dialed the other number, and then some problem happened. Either when we called, the number was busy, or we got weird transmission traffic back and forth, something of that nature. Now, the email to fax logs will show when the system had problems dealing with the fax that you sent to us, right? processing your documents, basically, right? Thumbs down, obviously that's a problem. This is who it came from. This is where they were sending it to, the date and the time. If you click on the little eyeball icon here, you can see that this person isn't on the, he doesn't exist on the account, meaning he's not enabled to have a fax box, or he doesn't have fax box permissions. And then they're saying at the time that there are no fax boxes on the account. The monitor, this is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members in terms of if they're on a call or they're not. Over here, right, you would see active inbound calls, as well as any part calls. If there's a part call, you would see the parking spot number. You also have the option to see who's available and who's busy, etc. The number manager basically takes you back to your numbers to see what numbers you have and which are available. Right, you can buy, port, etc. The recording manager actually takes you to a different site, right? Recordings.virtualpbx.com. Allows you to see your stored call recordings. Every account has a storage amount associated with it. You'd want to check with account services to verify what your storage amount is and what the overage is for going over. If you have a lot of call recordings, you should consider using something like Amazon Web Services, so you can link your AWS account to your Dash account, and then you can shunt all your recordings over there and not deal with any overages from us. Reports takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature. So you'd want to talk to account services. This allows you to create your own reports, right? So it's a bit more detailed than in the call logs. But there's also on our YouTube channel under videos, there is an advanced reporting demo there as well. So you can see some of the things that are being done there. Voicemails. This is the voicemail manager. It's included. You can select a voicemail box to see the status of a voicemail or of their voicemail box. See when it was received, right? Listened or new, etc. The phone number it was came in on, what phone number it came from, duration. You can play it back. You can download it. As an admin, if you put a check mark in front of it, you can then move it to a different voicemail box. Webhooks, also a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in this, you actually should talk to our sales team. They're the ones who have the more info on this. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see examples of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you cannot access a specific user's user portal, but that's because you can get to everything else. Right, voicemails, you would go to the voicemail manager. The call history, right, this would be like the call logs. You can see date and time of who made outbound calls and to where, for how long. You can see users' fax history. The contact list, right, this is all the feature codes and users and groups on your account. So your staff members aren't able to add to this particular contact list. Here's the conference tab once it loads. Over here to the right, it's a little scrunched, so I apologize for that, but this is where your staff members would update their moderator PIN and their participant PIN numbers. And then they have the option here, do people come in muted? Do people start deafened? As well as playing entry and exit tones. Once you're in a conference, up here you can invite other Dash users to your existing conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up, right, end the conference. And also when you're in a conference, you can mute a specific participant and kick a specific participant. Under settings and devices, this is where your users would enable call forwarding themselves, right? Just put that there. They enter in the phone number, click on save, and they would see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Gonna head back to the dashboard real quick. I've not seen any questions, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up today. We'll be back next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and we'll basically be going through all of this as well as any feature changes that come about. I don't know if anything is coming immediately, but you never know. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.